Good evening, everyone. This is change of plans for today. I'm going to, rather than covering the notes material, I'll cover that next class. So we'll kind of take it a little bit light today since you just had your Unit 1 wrap up. Just so you know, grades will be posted by tomorrow, Friday. So I'll get those uploaded for you. For the most part, everybody did fairly well. You know, some people struggled with the concepts, but there's a lot of you that actually did very well. So I was kind of really happy to see that. That aside, we're going to be working on the next program today, which is the called PaintPot, which is sort of like a Microsoft finger paint program. And what I'm going to do is I am going to put the program together for you, but I'm only going to do half of it. The next assignment that I will be posting on Blackboard later today is going to be the final pieces that you're going to need to put together for that. So without further delay, this is what the program is going to look like. What we see over here is just a standard picture of a cat face. Above it, you see the colors red, blue, and green. Those are going to be buttons, and the purpose of that is when I click on one of those buttons, I'm going to be able to draw dots on the backdrop of the screen over the cat's picture. And I'm also going to swipe across the screen to draw lines as well. And as you can see there, we have two buttons that are going to increase and decrease the dot size of the picture. And I'm going to hit the button and it's going to wipe the slate clean, so to say. So all the paint that we're going to splash on the screen is going to be wiped off, and then you're going to be able to color, draw, and do whatever that you need to do on there again. All right, so with that being said, let's get to it and see how it's done. All right, so just like I said, you're going to have, we got to set up our screen. And as you saw in that graphic before, pause this video as you know we go along so you can kind of catch up. If I go a little too fast, I'm trying to condense this all down into 30 minutes or under 30 minutes, I should say. So what I'm going to have is I'm going to drop a horizontal arrangement up at the top here. So I'm going to go to Layout, Horizontal Arrangement, and drag and drop that in there. I'm going to leave the naming of the horizontal arrangement as is, so I don't need to rename it, but if you want to, go ahead. But I'm going to change the height specifically to 40 pixels because I want to confine the buttons within that small space up top there. But the width, I'm going to change to fill parent because I want the buttons to span across the entire screen. All right, and as you saw with that previous graphic, we had 3 buttons up top here. So I'm going to go into my user interface, click on button, and I'm going to drop 3 buttons. Oops, that's supposed to go inside, like so, and then drop the 3rd button in here. All right, so we have 3 buttons, text for button 1, 2, and 3. Now I will have to rename these because when I go into the block side, I want to make sure that I have the proper naming of all these. So I'm going to click on button 1, I'm going to click rename, and rather than button 1, I'm going to title it button red. For the second button, same thing, I'm going to click rename. Instead of button 2, I'm going to title that button blue. And then lastly, button 3, I'm going to click rename, and then I'm going to call this button green. All right, so just like you saw, we're going to now select each individual button, and we're going to change some properties on the button over here. So for the first one, I have button red. All right, what I'm going to do is, as you saw within that last graphic, and I can show you quick, we have the color red overlaid on the button, the color blue, and the color green. All right, so I'm going to change the background color of these buttons so that it is the matching color. And then I'm going to change, instead of text for button 1 in here, I'm going to change it to red to match the color. All right, so to change the background color of the button, I'm just going to simply click on this over here. So button red is highlighted. I'm going to click on this default color, and I'm going to scroll down and just choose red. And as you can see, the color now shows red in the button. I'm also going to change the height and the width of this button, and I'm going to set both of them to fill parent. And the reason being is because I want them to sort of be vertically to be spaced fully in that arrangement and not leave any gaps, as you see with button 2 and 3 right now below with the arrangement. And I also want to make sure that equidistantly from left to right, that all 3 buttons are going to be the same size as well. All right, and then lastly, instead of text for button 1, I'm going to delete that out, and I am going to title it red. All right, so I'll do the same thing with button blue. Click on background color, select blue. And then we're also going to change the height and the width to fill parent. And we're going to delete text for button 2. And we're going to type in blue. All right, and then lastly, text for button 3, same thing, background color. And we're going to select green. And then height, fill parent, and width, fill parent. And then lastly, text for button 3 we're going to get rid of, and we're going to type in green. So as you can see, we got the 3 colors up top, all with the proper wording inside the proper color, and all the buttons look spaced out, evenly amongst themselves, and they also look like the same size as well. All right, so that is the first part. The next thing we need to do is we need to drop in the picture of the cat. But what we need to do is down here in the drawing and animation area, all right, we've got this thing called canvas. And we're going to click on canvas and we're going to drop it into the screen here. And the reason why we are using canvas is because of the fact that whenever I need to do any drawing or animation, I need to do that on top of my canvas. All right, I can't do any drawing or animation on my screen without having this canvas present. So it's sort of just like an artist. All right, an artist uses a canvas to paint on. Without a canvas, the artist is not going to be painting on anything. All right, even if they use paper, or they have to use some sort of parchment or some sort of substance in order to apply their paints to. All right, so no different in App Inventor. We got to use canvas in order to do all our animation on. So I'm with the canvas dragged and dropped here and highlighted. I'm not going to change the name because it's going to be the only canvas on here, but I want to change the height and the width. So for now, actually, let me do the width first, and I'm going to do fill parent on the width. And the height, I'm going to set actually to a set value. All right, for now, let me put in 300 pixels, and let me see what that looks like. All right, that looks a little too big, so let me change 300. And let me put in maybe like 250. And the reason why I'm setting this, because if you looked at the previous picture, all right, I've got the picture of the cat here, but I also have an area down below where I have additional buttons. So I need to make sure that I'm making space for that, which is why I'm confining the vertical space of my canvas. All right, so that's all I need to do for that. Now, to get the picture on here, as you can see with this canvas, we have the background color. This will change the background color of the canvas itself, but I don't want to do that. All right, I don't want to change the background color. I'm just going to leave it at its default color. If I could click on this again, and I'll just keep it at none. Right, what I want to do though is I want to apply a background image on top of my canvas. All right, so now what you need to do is we need to upload media, just like you've done with any of your MP3s or any, whatever files that you've stored so far from previous programs. What you're going to do is you're going to go online, grab it. You don't have to get a cat picture. You can get anything you want. So you're going to grab a picture of anything. You're going to upload it, by clicking here like you normally did with the other ones, choose file, navigating to the picture. All right, and then you're going to upload it into the media here. And then what we're going to do is we're going to come up here onto background image. We'll click on that. You'll have your PNG or JPEG file, available to you. Click OK, and then it displays the picture on the screen. All right, so that takes care of that. Now we need to add, again, as this is showing, we need to add the 2 buttons here and a label in between, and then another button on the bottom here. All right, so what I'm going to do is, as you saw, they were horizontal from each other, so I need to use an arrangement for that. And as a matter of fact, I'm going to actually take 2 arrangements. The first arrangement I'll drop in here, and let me change the shape of that. So the width, we're going to choose fill parent, and the height, we are going to choose 40 pixels. All right, and then I'm going to grab one more arrangement, and I'm going to drag and drop it below that one. And just like I did with number 2, I'm going to do the same thing. The height, I'm going to choose 40 pixels. And the width, I'm going to choose fill parent. All right, so I'm going to, in this one right here, I'm going to drop a button, a label, and a button. All right, so a button there, label here, and then a button here. And then on the bottom, I'm going to drop one more button on the bottom there, and I'll explain what all that is for. So the button on the left here, we're going to put just a minus symbol in there. And the purpose of that button is whenever I click on that, I want to decrease the pixel size of the dots that I'm going to draw on the screen. When I click on the plus button, obviously it is to increase the pixel size of the buttons I draw. And then the label, the purpose of the label is we're going to write some wording in here, which is going to inform the user what is the current size of the pixels that they're using. And the bottom button here is going to be my wipe button or my clear screen button, and that's going to clear off all the paint that I'm going to be applying onto the canvas. All right, so let's change some of these names here. So button 1, I'm just going to rename that. Instead of button 1, I'm going to call it button minus, but call it whatever you want as long as it's something similar. Since we only have one label, I'm just going to leave that as is. I'm not going to bother with that. Button 2, that's my addition button. So I'm going to call this button add. And then the third button is going to be my button wipe or button clear. So I'll call it button clear to clear the screen. All right, so now let's fix the sizing of this. So the first thing we need to do for the text for button 1, we're going to leave the default colors and everything the same. We're going to also scale the height to fill parent because we're inside the arrangement, so we want to make sure it spans that. And the width, we're also going to do a fill parent as well. And then rather having text for button 1, I'm just going to put the minus symbol in here. Keep it simple. Text for label 1, same thing. We're going to put the, I'm sorry, this one right here. With the height, we're going to choose fill parent. And then with the width, we're also going to choose fill parent. And rather it's saying text for label 1, I'm going to put size equals. All right, and then initially I'll put a space and I'll put a 0. But what I want to do in my code side is I want to keep the size equals as is, and I want only the number here to dynamically change. So every time I click the minus sign, I want this to go down by 1. When I click the plus sign, I want this number to go up by 1. All right, and so with the button add, same thing. We're going to go to height, fill parent, width, fill parent. And then again, text for button 2, we're going to get rid of that, and we're just going to put the plus sign in there. And yeah, that should take care of that. And then the last one, we got text for button 3 on the bottom here. It's my button clear. So what I'm going to do again is the height and the width, I'm going to choose fill parent. Come on, there we go. And then the width, also fill parent. And then instead of text for button 3, I'm going to type in clear screen. Okay, so right now the button spans the entire screen down here, and that's fine. I'm going to leave this for now. This is going to change with one of the enhancements that you're going to need to make for your assignment. But for right now, you can leave it the full length if you want. If you want to shorten it too, that's up to you. But I like it because it looks kind of, you know, the flow of the program looks all even. So I'm going to leave it as so. All right, so that being said, I'm going to leave the designer side as is. So we're going to shoot over to our block side now. Let me just do a quick check on the video recorder here because, okay, I got plenty of time because I can't exceed 30 minutes. Otherwise, I'll have to redo this and that'll be kind of terrible. So I'm going to shoot over to the block side now. We're going to connect all the blocks and we're going to go from there. Remember, I know I'm kind of going a little fast because I'm on a time crunch, but I'll make sure that you pause this along the way and, you know, so you can catch up and connect all the codes that, you know, that you need to. All right, so the first thing that I need to do is on the designer side, when I run this program initially, when I touch the screen, I'm going to make black dots on the screen, all right? So when I click on red, blue, or green, what that's going to allow me to do is to change the paint color of the dots that are being colored on the screen. All right, so with that being said, what I need to do the first thing is I need to click on my event handlers here. And those event handlers are going to allow me to, you know, when I click the red button, I want to change the paint color that is on the backdrop of that canvas. All right, so the first thing I'm going to do, select this. Because I'm changing paint color on the canvas, I'm going to go under the canvas and I'm going to look to see if there is a function like a set paint color or background color. And there we go. So we have there should be a paint color. Background color is for the background. There we go. So we have a set canvas.paint color. So by selecting that and pulling that out, all right, I'm going to plug that in. And because I have button red over here, what I want to do is I want to make sure that I select under colors, the red color button, or the red color tab, and connect this in here. So what this will do now is that when I touch the button red, it's going to change that paint color that I interact with on the screen, and it's going to make either red dots or eventually red lines when I hook that code up. So I need to repeat this process 2 other times because I need to do button blue and I also need to do button green. So we can go into the tabs over here and drag and drop everything out, or we can obviously do the shortcut method, which I'll do. I'm going to control click or right click on that and duplicate. And obviously I need to change button red because I don't want it twice. So this one, I'm going to click on this drop down and I'm going to look for button blue, which is here, and I'm going to change that. And then I also have to go in here and make sure that I select the appropriate blue color. All right, because obviously when I click button blue, I don't want to be painting in red. All right, so that will take care of this piece, and then I'm going to do this one more time by right-clicking or control-clicking on this, and I want to click on this drop-down and make sure I look for button green, which is right there. And then I want to select the appropriate color green to put on my screen. All right, so this alone will allow me now to select the proper colors. I'm still not going to be able to draw any dots, so because I'm recording this, there's no way for me to test the code to show you, so you're going to have to kind of pause and do this on your own. But as of right now, you're still not going to see any dots drawn because right now we're just selecting the paint. So let's get the dots working. So I'm going to go back into my canvas function over here, all right, and what we see here are some event handlers. Dragged, flung, touchdown, touch up, and touched. All right, when I touch the surface of the canvas on the screen, I want to draw circles. All right, so I'm going to use this. I could use touchdown or touch up, but that's a little finicky, or that's a little precise in my opinion. I just want the standard, touch up and down, or down and up, I should say, on the screen. And so I'm going to use just the standard dot touch feature. So in here, again, like I said, when I touch the screen, I want to draw circles. So when I go back into Canvas, I'm hoping there's a procedure that's called draw circles. So as you can see here, there's a procedure made that's .clear, which, food for thought, we're going to need to wipe the screen. This will draw an arc for us. This will draw the circle, so this is what we're going to need. Draw a line, we're going to eventually need that one too. All right, and there's other draw features as well that we can tap into depending on the type of program you're making. But for right now, we're going to click on Draw Circle. We're going to pull that out and we're going to connect this in. So now there's a whole bunch of inputs that are on this procedure here. When what it's looking for is the position that my finger is touching the screen. So if my finger touches a screen, say like directly in the middle of the screen, all right, that gives me basically the 200 value. And I think I might have actually explained this to you all already, but just in case I didn't, let me quickly go and just kind of show you what I'm talking about. All right, so if this were my App Inventor screen, all right, the way how App Inventor looks at the canvas or the screen feature is that it takes the upper left-hand corner as the 0, 0 coordinate system. So this kind of goes back into your math classes. All right, and so the 0, 0 coordinate system will allow me to identify where I'm at currently position-wise. So if I were to touch directly into the center of my screen here, the way how App Inventor measures position on the screen is that it counts positive pixel-wise in this direction. All right, and it also counts, which is counterintuitive, I know, but it counts positive in this direction, in the Y direction. So if this were a 400 by 400 pixel screen, and if I go halfway in both directions, then what that tells me is that this position, right here and right here, would be the 200, 200 position of my X and Y coordinates. All right, so no matter where I touch on the screen, App Inventor is always grabbing the coordinates of the screen that I'm on. All right, so let's get back to it. So as you can see, we have these orange blocks that are now embedded within this, this event handler. And these orange blocks are variables, no different than the variables that we worked with at the end of last unit. All right, so what the variables allow us to do is store information into the block, so to say. So when I touch my finger on the screen, all right, and I touch it at that 200 position, what is basically happening is that the X variable has a value now of 200 stored there, and the Y variable has a value of 200 stored there as well. And that's the values, the variables I want to call on that I want to plug into here. Because these variables that are built in here are called local variables, which means we can only use them within this event handler here. We won't be able to use them elsewhere. So all I need to do to get those values is mouse over the variable, and then a pop-up shows up, and I just want to slide, click on this, and drag it over and plug it in here. So what this is going to do when I touch the screen, the X value is going to register 200. It's going to store it within this variable, and now I'm calling the getX function because I want to get the current value X, because I want to draw a circle at that specific coordinate system. All right, and I do the same thing with Y as well. All right, so what this will allow me to do now is that this will allow me to draw a dot at that coordinate system that I touched specifically. Now, what I need to also input here is a radius. So I need to tell it specifically the size of the dot that I want to use. And I can actually go into the math tab here, and I can scroll up and I can click a number and hard code this number to say 5 or 10 and plug that in. But the problem is that it's always going to draw dots of the same size. It's never going to allow me to adjust the size of the dots, and I don't want that. I eventually want to make it so that I can change that. And in order to do that, what I'm going to have to do is I'm going to have to create a variable and use variables to do that. So the first thing I need to do whenever I use a variable that's going to be impacted across the entire code is I have to initialize my variable. So I'm going to pull initialize global name out, and then I'm going to go into the math tab, pick out that number, plug it in. I'm going to change the name. So instead of saying name, I'm going to put the word pixel. And then instead of 0, I'm going to change that to a 5 because that's going to be my default value. So now what I'm going to do is rather than putting a number in here, I'm going to go back to my variable and I'm going to click on get. I'm going to plug this get value in here, and I want to make sure that I'm getting the value that's being stored in pixel. Global pixel right there. All right. So now I have the ability to access that. So when I dynamically change this number here, when I click on the plus or the minus, that number is going to automatically change here as well, increasing or decreasing the radius of my dots that I'm touching the screen with. So what you can do now is you can pause the video here, and you can jump on and you can attempt it, work with it and see how it works. It will obviously only fill a pixel of 5 in radius. It won't change when you hit the plus or minus button because we still have to work on that. All right, so the next feature I want to do is I want to draw lines. All right, so in order to do that, on the canvas function here, I'm going to go back and we have this dot dragged event handler. All right, and this is going to allow me to draw lines on the surface. And just like I kind of pointed out earlier, if I go back into canvas, there is a procedure, all right, that's called draw line. So I'm going to click on this and I'm going to plug this in like I did with the draw circle. And as you can see, there's 4 inputs here. We have X1, Y1, X2, and Y2. So to kind of explain this really quickly, again, going back to my notepad, we have options over here. We got start X, start Y, previous X, previous Y, current X, current Y, and dragged any sprite. And these, again, are all embedded variables, local variables that as I'm touching the screen, that information is being stored within that variable. So as you can see, though, I have 2 inputs for X, 2 inputs for Y. I've got 7 variables up there. What do I need? So to kind of break it down really quickly, all right, if I touch again here, this is the starting point of what I'm touching on my screen, right? And I want to now draw, so say a fluid line that's going to look something like this. So what App Inventor does is that I'm going to draw just hash lines, right? And we're just going to assume that each hash line represents a pixel on my screen. All right, and so when I touch the initial spot here, this is going to be in App Inventor, which says start X. All right, that's my start X and start Y position. So what do they mean by previous X and previous Y and current X and current Y? Well, when I touch now, change color, when I now touch this, say, hypothetically here, well, what it's doing, it's registering my current position at that red dot. And at that point, the previous position would be the black dot. Well, if I now, move on to the next pixel, which is my blue dot, all right, that's my current position. The previous position is now the red dot. So every single time I touch a new position, that's the current position, and a line is connected between the first pixel and the second pixel. I touch a new one, well, a line is connected to that next dot. I touch the next one, a line is connected from the previous to the current. I touch another one, the line is connected from the previous to the current, and so on and so forth, until eventually you get just a very smooth line that basically is going through, your entire system. So yes, I can use the starting X position down here, but eventually what happens if I do that, what will happen is that if I choose the start X position as my X coordinate, 1, what will happen is that every single dot I touch from there is always going to draw a line from the starting position. All right, and I don't want that because what I'm going to get is something that's going to look like what you see on the screen here. Rather than having a line that's going to be smooth, like so, all right, it's going to draw lines and that are going to fan out. And I definitely don't want that. So with that being said, the two things that I need the previous X to go into the X1 and the Y1, the previous Y as well, because I'm always looking for where I'm coming from. And the X2 is your final position. That should always be my current position. So we'll plug in X2 and Y2 there. All right, and right here, this is all that you need, because now what you can do, you can pause the video and you can test, and you can swipe your finger across the screen while changing colors as well, and you'll see different colored dots and different colored lines as you're drawing. The downside, though, with this feature and this draw line function is that there isn't an input like over here for radius. And what that means is we're not going to be able to adjust the radius of our line. There is a workaround, which as a fun thing, let's see if you can figure that out on your own as an enhancement. So I won't tell you how to do it, but it doesn't work 100%. And it only works under certain conditions, like when you go really slow versus fast. So with that being said, that will take care of that functionality. Let me double check the time, what I'm looking at over here. All right, so we're at 27 minutes. Let me do this. I'm going to stop the video here, and I'll label this part 1. I'll make a part 2 video quickly, which will now, going back to my designer, which will now hook up the functionality of the minus and plus sign, which will fix this over here, showing that the size works. And you know what, let me do really quickly, let me actually get the clear screen working because I can fit it in with the amount of time that I have. So to wipe the screen, and I kind of already gave you a little hint about that, I'm going to go under button clear, because what I want is that when I click that button, I want to wipe the screen clear. So I'm going to grab this button clear.click and drag it out. And just like I told you, under the canvas function, all right, there is already that procedure made for us, canvas1.clear. And to wipe the screen, all I have to do is just grab that procedure, plug it in, and then now I can hit the clear button, and it will wipe all the paint off my screen. All right, so let me pause there, and I'll see you in the next video in just a minute.